Benjamin Franklin Gates, you are undertaking the duty of the family Gates to find the most spectacular treasure in history. It grew throughout the ages and moved across continents until it was hidden by America's founding fathers, who left clues to the treasure's location right before our eyes. The unfinished pyramid, the all-seeing eye, are telling us something. Keeping this treasure safe, Benjamin, is your destiny.
Hello and welcome to episode 54 of We'll Review It Ourselves, the podcast where we review the movies on our shelves. Every 2 weeks we'll take a randomly selected movie from our collection and we'll review it ourselves. I'm still Brian Morgan, and joining me as always is...
Last time I was at the DMV, I'm still Daniel Bergman.
You didn't change your name? Anything?
No, they still have it on file as such.
All right, well, there you go then. So if Dan gets pulled over, legally he's Daniel Bergman. Sometimes he goes by Steve. Wait, no, I don't know. You have a nickname, right? Don't you have a nickname?
I mean, none that I'd rather repeat here.
Fair enough.
Nobody ever gave me a loving nickname.
What if they gave the nickname to you out of love and you just didn't like it? What about that?
Yeah. I don't know. What was that movie? I've been working on a nickname. Yeah, what is it? Bob.
Oh, well, there you go then. I remember that line from a movie. I just don't remember what movie it's from.
That was from Down Periscope.
Oh, well, there you go.
Sonar,
Yep.
The sonar guy.
I should totally
No,
that.
It was actually, he was the electrician that said that.
Yes.
He was talking to the sonar guy.
Yes, quarter, 2 dimes, and a nickel or something like that, if I recall correctly.
Something like that.
All right, so before we get too much farther into the episode where we talk about national treasure and whether or not it is a national treasure, let's get to just some comments and stuff. I know on our last episode we played Rob Neese's voicemail, and we hope you all enjoyed that, and we hope you leave us more at the number we'll provide at the end of the episode. I don't know why I'm talking like that, but whatever, sounds cool. One, we really enjoy stuff like that because it gives us a chance to hear inflection, and sometimes that doesn't convey properly on a typewritten message written off the screen, or read off the screen rather. So feel free to leave us voicemails. If you can't do that, you can always email us an audio clip from your phone device or whatever, or you can email us, or all that good stuff. So we would love to hear from more listeners. Now, we haven't gotten any specifically to the podcast page or Twitter feedback on the Last Samurai episode, which was the most current one that was released since we recorded last. So does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, as far as what you said, but I think we previously asked is if we had feedback about that and if we had already discussed it.
Yeah, and we haven't.
I think Rob Neese had made a mention about how he was educated in Japanese culture.
Well, and that was what I was going to say. He had contacted me directly, and discussed his history of Japanese culture. So did you want to talk a little bit more about that? I know we'd spoken.
Well, yeah, no, I just, it felt good that, the compliment from an educated and informed person, it said that, I pretty much had it right about, why the samurai were resisting change.
Nobody likes change.
Nobody likes change, especially when, there's a perception of loss of power. Which is kind of, it's kind of what we see in our culture right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, listener Jeff contacted me, and he agreed with the philosophical point about, like you were saying, what's going on today with the loss of power and everything. So that's kind of what I wanted to sum up. Rob also messaged me some photos of some of his collection stuff that he forgot to mention while he was calling us on the phone. But he has he still has it. It's just not exactly in mint condition anymore because he was storing it in his trunk, and apparently in what might be something that most people don't know, it gets really warm in Canada. But he was storing it in his trunk, and some of the plastic warped, so he's trying to reshape it back to its original condition. But he's got some Star Wars figures and stuff like that he'd sent me some photos of, so it was pretty cool. We had a really nice chat, and again, I want to thank you for that, Rob. And again, you can also send us messages directly to the Facebook account, and either I or Dan will respond to you, depending on which one of us sees it first. Both Dan and I are admins on the page and should get the messages. So if you want to talk to me or you want to talk to Dan, just have at thee, knave. And and once again, really, really do appreciate those of you that are still with us after the hiatus, and hopefully you will recommend us to your friends and say, hey, they took a break, but they're back and they're awesome and we love them.
We hope.
We hope. Well, I mean, we'll accept, deep like. I mean, we're okay with that. I mean, will you? I didn't consult you beforehand, but I just assume.
No, I'll accept that.
All right. So that's really all we have for listener feedback, sort of summing it up. And again, we do truly appreciate that. So, Dan, I'm going to ask you, because I always seem to ask first, unless it's something that's mine specifically and you want to know. But how did this movie get on your shelf?
Well, this movie is not on my shelf. That's not to say that I consider it a bad movie. I don't know, it's just not been a real priority for me. I saw it in theaters with my cousins, so to say. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of brought us back to the old adventure serials. It's the type of things that inspired Lucas and Spielberg to make Indiana Jones and every other knockoff and everything. So, but it just I don't know. It never rang that epic tone with me. So it never ended up on my shelf.
Okay. Fair enough.
How about you?
I own this movie because I think in the same vein as you, it wasn't something that I thought I desperately have to own this, but Christy and I went and saw it at the movies together, and when it came out, it was one of those, oh, we enjoyed that, didn't we? Didn't we like that? I think we liked that. Yeah, we liked that. Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Let's watch it. Let's get it and watch it again. The irony is, I don't remember the last time I've cracked open the DVD case, because that's the format that we have it on. And there was a light coating of dust, which again goes to the purpose of the podcast to, get the dust off the movies and give them a watch. But I've seen the movie dozens of times because it's always on TNT or TBS or the Sci-Fi Channel or Fox or FX or picking over or a cable station rather, and it's probably been on there at least a dozen times, and it's kind of one of those, there's nothing really else on, so we'll stop and watch this and sort of pick it up in the middle. So I've seen the movie collectively, a lot. I'd forgotten how it started.
Yeah, they're funny. I don't have cable per se. I mean, we have internet and we watch whatever we want on Netflix or PlayStation View or anything like that. So I don't really see it repetitively as you do. So it's not a movie that I've seen too many times. I think this is probably the third time I've seen it entirely.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things that helped me watch movies, or at least see parts of movies and collect a lot of snippets and bibs and bobs of movie quotes and that sort of thing, were deployments. So you'd walk into a place where they were showing movies, birthing, the mess decks or whatever, and you could watch 5 minutes of a movie and then go off and go do whatever else it was you were doing. So I've caught a lot of it that way too. So when you don't have regular old television and you're stuck with whatever the people that play the movies on the ship want to play, sometimes you see a movie over and over and over again.
Yep. I remember those days too. Yeah, just I remember for us on Pogi, it was Ski School was this movie that got played over and over and over again. It got to the point where a lot of people actually rebelled. Like they made it like their personal mission to break into the movie locker and take the tape and destroy it. Or something like that. It's like, wow, that's some personal hatred they have for a movie.
Yeah, that's one of those movies that's strictly sophomoric humor. I mean, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. It was one of those old college movies, and
yep.
Of course, the guys liked it because there were a few scenes of TNA, and but it's the same one that you saw last time you watched this movie. It's like you guys like a little variety, but no, they didn't. It's always the same thing.
Well, as they say, that's variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, well, you're talking about a bunch of guys who just wants ketchup.
Yeah, fair enough. I want eggs on my ketchup or ketchup on my eggs. I don't care, whichever. All right. Well, now that we know how this movie got on our shelves, which I think you were about to say, moving on.
Yeah, moving right along though. I gotta say, like I said, I consider this movie, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm bad-mouthing the movie. It's not a bad movie. I just want people to understand that it's a fun movie. It's just, like I said, it's just my own opinion isn't strong enough to warrant a purchase. But that said, the one thing that really stands out in this movie, what do you think it is? Because everyone says it's like these guys know each other a long time. I was wondering if you could read my mind. What's the one thing that really stands out in this movie?
I
Oh well.
I don't know. There's so many things that I could guess. But Sean Bean doesn't die.
Yes, that's exactly it. He lives. It's like it was even in the trivia section in IMDb. That is one of the few movies where his character doesn't die.
Well, it was funny because I started watching this, and obviously I knew Sean Bean was in it, and like, oh, he doesn't die in this one. And I was watching for other people to die, and with all of the bullets flying around, if I recall correctly, only one person died in this movie, and he wasn't shot, he fell.
Yeah.
Nobody else dies. All the bullets flying around, nobody gets shot.
Yeah. Which, it's funny because there was a commentary I watched about movie violence and the violence that we try to sequester from people versus the violence that we say, oh, it's okay. And it's that comic book violence where, like you said, where the bullets fly and nobody gets hurt and everyone says, oh, that's okay. Yeah, which is an unrealistic
portrayal
representation.
Okay, yes.
Portrayal of what life is and everything. And some people argue that that's actually more dangerous for young people than showing, because I think the two examples they use is like where they showed a scene in True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Arnold. And the scene they showed is where one of the stereotypically Middle Eastern terrorists with an AK-47 is shooting at Tom Arnold, and he's emptying his clip on him, and Tom Arnold takes refuge behind a signpost or a light post, and he doesn't get hit. And everyone has a good laugh over it because, like, oh yeah, the fat guy hid behind something that doesn't really cover him, but he never got hit. Ha ha ha! Everything. And they said, yeah, that's the violence that we said is okay for kids to watch. But then they go over to Saving Private Ryan, the opening scene, and they said, nope, we're not going to show them that. We're going to protect children from that. And and it's like I kind of agree that that's kind of backwards. I'm not saying we should show it them in a young age, but we should also show them that this is what really happens when bullets fly.
I agree. That was it. That's all I had. I agree.
Oh, okay.
You sound like you're going to say more. I'm like, I agree. And then
No, I mean that's and that was the point and everything. So I mean, not much to attach to this movie. It's like, yeah, there is that element where, yeah, a lot of bullets do fly, and nobody seems to get hurt. The only death that occurred was a nice, clean Disney death of falling into a dark pit.
yes.
Which I kind of wondered at the end when they got to the bottom, they didn't find the body, or was there more to the shaft when they got to the treasure room?
I think the body just magically disappeared. I mean, they got to the bottom. That's where they had to be. So, and I didn't see a body.
Yeah. So again, Disney, nice little sweep under the rug.
Well, maybe he was under the elevator. Maybe that's why they didn't see him. Well, no, because hold on. When they stopped and Sean Bean and crew got back onto the elevator, the dumbwaiter, and went back up, wasn't there still stuff below them?
I'd have to watch it again, but it's like it seemed like that they were at the bottom.
I assumed they were, but I now that we're questioning it, I'm not 100% certain.
Well, we'll review that later, and we'll talk about it next podcast.
Yeah, listeners, if you've been looking and you happen to know the answer to that, or you want to watch it for us and join along in the conversation, let us know. Wow, that's crazy. Because when he fell, it was almost like one of those, just I don't want to say computer animated, but just like, oh look, there's the darkness, and he fell, and you didn't even hear a thud at the end.
Well, that is a very classic Disney do away with a villain. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see that in so many other. I mean, it was a Gaston from Beauty and the Beast and Tarzan. Although you did see what happened, you kind of sort of what happened to him in Tarzan. You saw his shadow hanging from the vines.
Right, and that was the only thing you got was an allusion to a death. Like, there's some stuff over there. Don't look there.
And then what was the other movie I'm thinking? Oh yeah, Rescues Down Under. I think the poacher, he fell down a ravine or a waterfall actually.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean it's a very, very classic way to get rid of Disney villains. Nice and clean. You don't have to worry about it.
And I had forgotten this was a Disney movie, so it makes sense. Until I saw the opening, Disney thing. They're,
Mm-hmm. It's funny. You say you forgot that this was a Disney movie. I forgot that this was a Bruckheimer vehicle as well.
I didn't forget that. That I knew. I just didn't realize. And
there was a lot of reminders that, this is the same guy who gave us Pirates of the Caribbean. In fact, I think the trivia section even stated that a few bars of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme were in there. It's just kind of, coincidence or just something he recycled or something. But if you listen to in the scene when he puts the pipe into the keyhole, and there, he said the trivia thing said that there's a few bars of Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack in there.
I did hear some music that it felt like I'd heard in other movies before, but I couldn't quite place it, so maybe that was it.
Probably that. Yeah, like I said, I very reminiscent. So it's just, the adventure feeling was there.
Well, Bruckheimer movies do have a certain feel to them in general. So I remembered that was who had produced this, and it feels like a Jerry Bruckheimer production. It's got that kind of like what you were saying, I don't want to say cartoon violence, but it's got the not realistic violence. It's entertainment violence, if you will, and it's got the well-meaning characters. I don't know that Nicolas Cage's character Benjamin Gates has a whole lot of depth in the sense that your only understanding of him really is his motivation to find this treasure, clear the family name, if you will, or bring honor to the family name, and respect for history. After that, you're like, oh, nothing else matters. Yeah, I mean, he seems like a good dude, doesn't want to hurt anybody, that sort of thing, but he's not horribly complicated. He's a simple man with a simple mission to do this thing and find this treasure, and he's not finding it, or he's not searching for it for his own benefit.
Yeah, it's and again, I don't want to sound like I'm bad mouthing the movie, but yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple, limited dimension type plot.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's no. Again, as long as you understood that this movie is for fun.
Yeah, and I think we've used the term before. It's fairly common, but it's a popcorn film. It's exactly what it says it is. It's a good, we'll call it clean. It's a good clean romp to find a hidden treasure. It's like you said, like the old serials back in the day that inspired Indiana Jones. This is Indiana Jones without Nazis and without machine
melting
guns
faces.
and melting faces and stuff. It's there's a good guy, there's a bad guy, and there's the police.
It's funny too when you say that this was a a good clean movie. I remember that was part of the praise my cousin. He's a relatively conservative type individual, and I just remember one of the things that he kept praising that I kept hearing him repeat several times. Oh yeah, it was a great movie, good clean fun, no sex at all. It's like that was his main criteria for a good movie. There was no sex involved in this movie. It was great. You could bring your kids.
Yeah, I think there was 2 kisses. That was it.
Which I think were unnecessary, but that's just me.
Well, again, goes to the Bruckheimer, Disney sort of got to have romance in there kind of thing. And it's interesting because, and I don't want to go too much into the sequel because National Treasure, Book of Secrets. In fact, doing some of the research for this, I guess Nicolas Cage said that he thinks that moviegoers would watch a third installment in this. I guess you'd call it a franchise at that point. I would go have a good time and watch that on the screen. But the standard trope in the sequel is, well, we figured out that stressful situations bring people together, and then we find out in the next movie that they broke up. Like, oh yeah, we're really not that compatible because of something. They played with the trope. It's kind of, knowing what you know and knowing there's a sequel. You're like, oh, you guys are going to have problems later. It is kind of amusing, but you got to have the romance in your swashbuckling tale of daring adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the girl. Yep, you did. Yep. It's in the end. I mean, they even kind of, Riley kind of pokes at the trope. And you got the girl. Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. But he got a Ferrari that he couldn't drive, so, I mean, that's good, too.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because when he talks about it, it's like me and my measly 1%, not even a fraction of a 1%. And I think there was somewhere in my research, they said that, considering if the $10 billion number was accurate, it basically he got something in the neighborhood of like $50 million. Poor guy.
Oh, bummer. Yeah.
Taking food off his table. Yeah.
I know. You went from having nothing to 50 million. I think you'll be okay. But so, speaking of Nicolas Cage, which we kind of were, a couple of things. One, Nicolas Cage is known for independent movies, and I think he's done quite a few different things. I think this is one of the bigger ones that he's known for, what we'll call the blockbuster. What do you think of Nicolas Cage in an overall sense, and what do you think of him in this movie?
Okay, overall sense, I like Nicolas Cage. He's not. Let me say that again because I was interrupted by the by the family units.
No problem.
I like Nicolas Cage.
Liar.
No, he's good at what he's good at. All right, that sounded silly. Sorry, but Well, I was just saying, like, he plays crazy pretty well. Now, I'm not talking over the top, psycho crazy. I'm talking like bringing out the dead, burnout, paramedic. He's had enough. He was really good in that. And
Hmm.
then, of course, he had a good director to helm him. It's like he had Scorsese, everything really good. Um, when he plays brooding, I think he's really good there too. It's like I said, when he's under someone like Michael Bay, it's just then no, it's a little bit too much. Doing that little southern accent that he did and
Oh,
everything. No, I don't
Jesus.
like. Yeah, thank you. Um, so in essence, it's like I always say, people I admire don't have to be perfect, and yeah, he's not. But when he's good, he's good. And so to round it out to the second question, I think he did pretty well in this specific role.
I agree.
Like you said, he was trying to regain his family honor. There was that scene where there was a slight argument over the fine line. It's like what was it? What was the words they used? He said obsession. Well, Riley said obsession, and he said no, passionate or something like that. Yeah, there's a fine line between those things. There's a fine line between genius and insanity.
Yes, there is.
Same line. You know. Um, and I think where his portrayal of a character who's skirting that line, I think he did pretty well in this. So I think that's what kind of really made it fun, because you're kind of wondering, is this guy gonna go too far? But when you think he's going too far, there's a payoff, and he's like, no, I was right. There is something here, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, his whole search is justified in the end. But one of the things that I don't like about Nicolas Cage in general, and I guess it goes to your point about who's directing him, is sometimes he can go a little off the rails. And in this particular movie, there was one scene that he almost let Nicolas Cage out, if you will.
Nicholas out of the cage.
Yes, exactly. Good point. Well played. And it was while he was at the National Archives at the gala, and he met with Dr. Chase and the other dude that worked there, and he was offering a toast, and he was going on about treason. The toast was to high treason. Said, well, that's what these men were doing when they signed this document. They were committing high treason, and had we lost the Revolutionary War, they would have been hung, captured, hung, drawn and quartered, and my favorite, their entrails cut out and spilled all over the place. It was like, that one was like, okay, you could have toned that one down a little bit or just left it out. And he had that wild kind of Nick Cage look in his eyes that you see in some of the movies where he's a little less than stable, if you will. So beyond that, I think he did a great job in this role. He was, reasonably believable as the character, in the sense that he didn't have to, like it said earlier, and you agreed, I believe, he didn't have to go into any significant emotional depth. It was like, it's history. I love history. It's my family. I love my family. So yeah, I enjoyed him in this movie.
Yeah, it's funny that scene you're talking where he almost went full Nicolas Cage or anything. You can just imagine, somebody just off camera, no, waving the hands, bring it down.
Shh. You see him doing that soothing petting motion, like, shh, it's okay, Nick.
It's just okay. Like you got somebody in the corner calling Brock, Jerry, he's not stopping. Jerry, do something. Turtle Top has lost control.
But I really loved him in Leaving Las Vegas. I thought he was brilliant.
Like I said, brooding. Really depressive, and he's really good at that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I do like about Nicolas Cage, and again, not a big stretch in this movie, but he tries different things. He's not the typecast actor that's always going to play the swashbuckling hero or the happy-go-lucky ne'er-do-well. He does different things, and respect and admire that. I admit there's some movies that he's done that I've said, oh wow, yeah, that was either not a good movie in the first place, or you were just not good in that movie. Yeah, wow, and maybe that comes down to directors and who's guiding him and trying to put him into that headspace to play the role. I don't know.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with that, and I really support that notion that, yeah, it's like a good director can really make or break an actor's performance. I mean, you can have a talented actor, but if you don't know how to guide that, and I mean, it's like saying that this is the most accurate rifle in the world, but if you don't have somebody who knows how to aim it, that accuracy don't mean squat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great analogy. What about the other actors in this movie? I mean, really, of all the famous, the big names, Sean Bean, Jon Voight, and Chris Plummer, Harvey Keitel. Those are the ones that I immediately came to mind. Like, I've seen them in other movies. And I looked up the other two, Riley and Dr. Chase, and I'd seen them in other stuff, but it's kind of one of those like, oh, this is the thing I remember them from.
I really like Christopher Plummer when he shows up in movies. I mean, he's like one of those guys now who, like Max von Sydow's opening scene in Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It's just like, oh, I know him. Oh God, he's so cool. But then he's not in the rest of the movie, and it's just like, oh. But he did really lend a lot to that. Okay, I'm going to tell you the story. And it's just like there's few people who can do something like that where you really get engaged. Because I mean, again, the old conversation of tell me versus show me. Well, and we're gonna show you. We're gonna. Sorry, I take it. We're gonna tell you and show you a little bit. And if you have to do that, fine. And you made it so much better using Christopher Plummer. I was very happy to see his appearance. And I had almost but forgotten that Harvey Keitel was the FBI agent in that. So I was very happy to see him again, too, because I like to listen to him. I mean, he's so wonderful under direction of Quentin Tarantino. He delivers Tarantino's dialogues exquisitely. And even here, he's just, his talent really comes out. And I like just, how he delivers his lines. And just the whole, like, somebody's got to go to jail.
Yeah, exactly. Well, somebody's got to go to jail. I think he's one of those guys that just innately sort of inhabits a role. So I don't know that I've ever seen anything that I didn't like him in. And that goes to kind of, the difference between him and Nicolas Cage. I think even with a bad director, he can make something happen. Whereas Nicolas Cage, I think, again, maybe it's his quirkiness as a person. Because, I mean, I think we discussed this on our Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil episode about not following the lives of famous people. I don't care. But Nicolas Cage is quirky in real life from what I have read. So I think sometimes some of that comes out, whereas it seems as though, again, Harvey Keitel's a little more consistent in his behavior. So I wonder if that exterior force, the way he lives his life, affects his in-movie ability to portray the character.
I agree.
Okay.
I want to just like kind of skew the conversation just a little bit because I mean it still has to do with Harvey Keitel, but we're talking about how well he's able to do what he does. And I don't know if you knew this in the movie Apocalypse Now. Before Martin Sheen was tapped to play the role of Captain Willard, it was Harvey Keitel. And Harvey Keitel shot the first few days of shooting. He shot a few scenes and was, I guess, Coppola didn't like what he saw and he fired him and brought in Martin Sheen. So my question is, bringing that what if thing that we always do once in a while. how do you think Apocalypse Now would have looked if Harvey Keitel stayed on? As much as we're admiring him, I'm just kind of wondering if, like, what we would say to that.
I don't know. That's a hard question, and obviously I appreciate you asking it because, the hard questions are sometimes more fun. I think it would have been a different movie, but I think it would have been just as good, just in a different way. I think Harvey Keitel can bring a certain composure to a role, but I don't know. I think Martin Sheen and Harvey Keitel are cut from the same cloth, really. So I don't know that it would be, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be that much different. I mean, I could be wrong about that. I'd like to see Harvey Keitel play the president one time and see how that works out for me. So
that would be interesting. We'll have to think of that.
Yeah.
We'll have to think of a vehicle for him.
Yeah, well, we'll reboot The West Wing and let him play the president and see what happens. And then we'll make a comparison and see which one's better.
Sounds good to me.
But yeah, so beyond Sean Bean and again John Voight, Christopher Plummer, and Harvey Keitel, I don't recall other movies that I've seen Diane Kruger, the lady that plays Dr. Chase, Abigail, in the movie, in other things. And I looked at her IMDb page. She's been in things that I've seen. I think this was the thing she peaked in as far as exposure. And she's still out there working, which is cool. I liked her in this movie. I thought she did a good job. And the guy that played Riley, Justin Bartha, again, I think I've seen him in other things in passing, but this is the thing that I most remember him for. So, again, I thought he was fun, did exactly what he needed to do. The put upon little sidekick that was actually the most crucial player in the whole movie.
I was just happy because his character archetype, had a very large potential of being really annoying, as most sidekicks tend to be in a lot of movies of this nature. And I was just really happy that he was actually very tolerable, very useful, and not a complete waste of film.
Well, he did bring. I admire his driving skills. They're in the van chasing down the roach coach, the mobile kitchen thing, and suddenly he's driving to anticipate another driver trying to shoot at them, and also trying to get close enough to get Abigail off of the truck. So I don't know that most computer nerd research guys are going to have that skill set. He was the tech guy, but he could drive. He knew random bits of trivia, and he was, loyal to his friend, even though, he probably didn't need to be. He had no real stake in this, except for if there was treasure, he could get, $50 million or whatever.
A decent share of it.
And go ahead.
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, and even his protestations at the end were, they're like, yeah, I could have been richer, but oh God, my pain, I'm not as rich as I could have been. He was still just giving him a hard time, but I mean, it didn't feel like he was genuinely motivated by this desire to be, super duper ridiculously rich.
Like I said, he wasn't annoying, he wasn't useless. That's great. But it's funny, you use the word loyal, and that was a point that I want to talk about. I wasn't sure how I was going to bring it in here, but that's the one trope that I see in a lot of treasure hunting stories. And I say stories because I'm talking about movies, books, video games, especially. Whenever they're treasure hunting, you can always count on somebody to betray the main character. Have you noticed that?
Oh, that's where you get your conflict. I mean, yeah.
Well, so that's the thing. I mean, you can get conflict from other treasure hunters, but the guy who's with you and that's been helping you and everything, and then he turns around and says, "Oh no, I'm going to take the treasure now. Bye," and he does whatever. He shoots him or betrays him in some way. Yeah, but when Sean Bean did it just when I first saw this movie, I was like, "Oh, come on! Why does it always have to happen like that? Can't you guys just work together?" No, of course not. But I gotta say though, it doesn't happen in every treasure hunter adventure story. I have to say, I give so much kudos to the Uncharted series on PlayStation. Nathan Drake and his partner Sully.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how bad things got, Sully always stuck by him. One of the few loyal partners that I've ever seen in any treasure hunting franchise. And through four or five games, the guy's always been loyal. So I'll give kudos to that.
Okay, yeah, and because you don't even see that in Indiana Jones.
No,
I mean it's a trope for a reason.
Yeah, well, then when you think about Sala, he was pretty loyal, but he really wasn't like his full-time partner. He was kind of his local help.
Yes, but was it when Belloc took the thing from him? It's a pretty consistent theme throughout the Indiana Jones movies. So at some point, someone's going to betray him.
It's going to get backstabbed, as always.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Though, something else though that in treasure hunting tropes, and I'm afraid this one does cross all of them, and it's just one of those things where it's just a facepalm moment. Is here these guys, these treasure hunters, are finding these amazing archaeological discoveries. They found a frozen ship in the ice. Indiana Jones finds a whole Egyptian cavern full of other treasures rather than just the Ark of the Covenant. And what do? They
blow it
bust
up.
It. They blow it up. Why? Why did just like all this amazing discovery? So much we can learn from what they find, but we're just gonna blow it up.
It's fine. You're not getting the big picture. The big reward is the thing, not the history. It's the other history thing. It's the individual. There's plenty of Egyptian caverns. It'll be fine. But there's only one Ark.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things when we were talking about people getting killed in this movie. It wasn't as though there weren't attempts, like when they blew up the Charlotte, and it is only through sheer movie magic that they survived that, because they were, ground zero when the powder blew up. And, man, they still survived. And I don't think that we ever really discussed how they got back from the Charlotte. Aside from the comment that Sean Bean said about, let's get going before someone sees the smoke. So they couldn't have been that far away. I guess it's a...
Well, Nicolas Cage did say there was and forgive me, I forget if he said it was an Inuit village nearby that they were able to get to. So yeah, I don't think they were too far. I think both those lines kind of neatly covered that. They weren't very far away from civilization.
Yeah, it's kind of though, we don't have to show you that they lived. It's a movie. They're going to get back to civilization or whatever. Yeah,
I think, like I said, I think Sean Bean's concern of somebody seeing the smoke meant there was somebody nearby who could. I think that was enough.
Yeah, to clue you in.
To clue you in that they weren't that far and that they're making it back to civilization was not that much of a stretch.
Yeah, and the travel times, again, as with any movie, lend themselves to, we're going to wrap this up in 2 hours, but they're decidedly unrealistic when you look at how long they would have had to have been on foot to get back to the Inuit village, how long they would have had to travel to get back to the DC area, to do all the things that they did.
I kind of wonder if that's a Bruckheimer movie characteristic, because, you see a lot of that in Pirates of the Caribbean when they're like, okay, we're all the way here down near, Cuba or something like that, but let's go to Tortuga. Hour later, there they are, Yeah, oh, let's go to Singapore. Okay, 2 days later, they're in Singapore.
Nothing happened along the way. It was quick sailing. We found the magic, it's like Mario, Super Mario Brothers, when you just jump in the pipe and come out at the other end of the map. It's just like that.
Just like that.
There's a magic pipe in movies that lets you move from one spot to another with no actual time transpire and no actual time passing. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I mean, it happens in movies all the time. So we could continuously comment on it. Like
we could, but that's and we will in future podcasts because that's what nerds do to movies.
We tear them down apart. And go. It takes a long time to get from Philadelphia to New York.
Yeah. And in this traffic, forget about it.
Have you driven in New York? I don't know why that voice showed up, but whatever, it's all good.
Whatever. It's the kind of going back. You were talking about the Charlotte. One thing I'd like to just kind of touch on, just kind of mention because it's a neat little concept I recently learned about. Watching YouTube videos about movie making and everything, and it's a term, Chekhov's gun.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever heard that. Yes, where they say if you show a rifle in the first act, it better go off by the third. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. I kind of recognize it. And again, it's just, this is me learning a new concept. I'm not trying to say that I'm a know-it-all and, film school graduate. No, nothing like that. It's just kind of a neat thing that I found amazing, is that I was taught what Chekhov's gun is, and I saw that in the pipe, where you got the pipe in the Charlotte in the first act, and then in the, later on he says, I'll give you everything. I'll give you the pipe and all that. And it's like, okay, he's got the pipe back. Whoop-de crap. Oh, no, it's the key. Oh, wow, brought back. It's like, I wonder, and it's like, is that Chekhov's gun? Did it, did I just watch it go off,
Yes, you did.
So I thought that was really cool. I think that's just, a positive to say about this movie.
Yeah, this was a tight movie in the sense that there were no significantly obscure references that went nowhere. Everything that showed up had a purpose, like Chekhov's pipe, the purchasing of the Declaration of Independence. You didn't see him buy two, but he makes the purchase. He knows he used a credit card, and he had the foresight to purchase a second one. It was kind of one of those, like, all the little things that happened, there was follow through on them to say, oh yeah, that actually, happened for a reason in the movie. There weren't a lot of like little weird individual loose ends. When Sean Bean sees the little kid, bumps into him, and then he sees him again, it's like, oh, hey, wait a minute. The glasses, you think that's the end of them, and then you see Harvey Keitel sort of ticking with him. And I'll be honest, one of the things that I was curious about, and I don't think it's true, but it's one of those, we'll call it a conspiracy theory in regards to the movie, was Harvey Keitel's character as a high-level Freemason doing that intentionally to sort of show Gates that there were other capabilities of these glasses.
Interesting. I never thought of that, but as you're talking about it, I'm thinking of that scene, and it's like, I guess you can go either way on that one.
I'm inclined to think he was just absent-mindedly fiddling with it, but it's fun to think, that he was doing it to show him there was something there.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fun to think about that, because, it's like, as I've said before, I love fan theories and everything, and I think that's a pretty interesting fan theory to say that, yeah, he was actually egging him on. Because, I mean, being a Freemason, and he would also be privy to the quote-unquote legend of the Great Treasure and everything. And, I think he would be just as much interested in finding it as anybody of that group, And it's just to say, well, here's the best chance of finding it. But I can't just let him go.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just as curious as you are, but I can't do anything about it.
But, hey, fiddle around with the glasses. I know you're inquisitive. I know you're observant. I know, you see me doing this,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it's just a fun little pet theory that I just thought up while I was watching the movie, because I don't know if it had ever occurred to me before, but then again, I'd never watched the movie with the intention of talking about it afterwards like we're doing now. So again, benefits of a podcast. Sometimes I come up with weird fan theories on the fly.
Yeah. So talk about fan theories and conspiracies and whatnot. There's an interesting thing I thought about, because it just the logical side of me says this is probably just purely coincidence, but it's interesting coincidence. And I was just going to reference the scene when they're first looking at when they're plotting to steal the Declaration of Independence. They're looking at it, and he reads the quote. And the quote was, "It's like, but when a long strain of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably to the same objective evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security." And I'm just thinking, it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting that he quotes that part. And when he further explains it and saying that, if you have a duty to do something, or if you have the ability, you have a duty to do something. And it's something that can really be relevant today. But I don't seriously think that they meant to talk about today in this movie. It just seems like an interesting coincidence that it's something that could apply.
I think that's something we've discussed before, where, sometimes what's old is new again, or recurring themes throughout movies and history, period. It's intriguing that even 243 years later, that the Declaration of Independence is still a relevant document. I mean, if we want to go down this road for just a minute, going back to what Gates said at his toast at the archives, this was high treason. This was, revolting against your country. These were not Americans, except that they lived in the colonies in the Americas. This was not the United States of America until they declared their independence, and even then, we still had to fight a war over it. They were not happy with the founding fathers, the signers, were not happy with the government as it was being not representative. It was not something that they were willing to deal with anymore. And conveniently enough, we have a 3,000-mile moat between us and England, and we were able to hold the English at bay, basically. I mean, because yes, we won the war, but it was mostly because England wasn't throwing everything they had at us. And I'm not denigrating the American forces, just saying that it would have been a different war had England put all of the effort that they could have into it. They could have, marshaled their forces in Canada and just sort of moved down from the south, or moved down to the south from the north, and it would have been a totally different war, and we would have a totally different history, and by God, we'd still be speaking English, but it'd just be a different variation of it.
Though, my question is that after all this time in history and how we see history repeating itself, and the way the government is looking right now, do you think England would take us back? Do you think they're still mad?
I don't think they would take us back right now. I'm just throwing it out there, and it's got nothing to do with that. I'm mostly because England has their own issues with Brexit and everything. So yeah, I think they've got a few other fish to fry before they consider adopting their wayward children. Oh, the prodigal son returns. Like, why's it got to be a son? I don't know.
Oh, so you think you could just come crawling back now? You think you knew everything, did you?
Oh, discovered representative democracy is not that good, did you? Oh, look at you. Oh, we've got a great form of government. Watery tots lobbing scimitars. That's what we've got. Yeah, which is funny because just real quick on the Monty Python and the Holy Grail thing. I mean, we talk about quoting that often, and ironically on this podcast, I think that's the first time we've quoted that in some time, which kind of makes me sad But it makes me happy that we just did, so we're good.
Okay. No, I was gonna say though, it's funny that we're talking about history now, and I think this is a good way to segue into the last major thing I like to talk about in this movie is, this movie, it takes history and it gives it a little twist and everything, and granted, this movie did not claim to be historical. It doesn't claim to be based on historical events. It doesn't make any such claim. This movie is just fun, right? Like you said, popcorn movie. But there is still a phenomenon where people would watch a movie like this and think, yeah, this is where I'm going to get my history.
Oh, God.
Do you think that that is a major problem in this society?
I wish that it weren't, but I think that is probably a more true statement than it should be.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And that was the the point I'm gonna make, because even though I haven't really heard too many people speak of this movie, I kind of have a feeling that there are people out there who really believe in that. Oh yeah, the Knights Templar became the Freemasons, and that they had a treasure somewhere. It could be because although I haven't heard anybody speak of this movie specifically, I've heard them speak of other movies, like it were true facts. And I remember the first, really thinking about this, it made me think of the first time I ever heard something like this. And even at that tender young elementary school age, and the movie was Time Bandits. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh God, I love that movie, and I have to go buy it because I should own that movie.
You should own that movie. Great movie. A little scene in there you might remember when they are robbing Napoleon.
Lasers, day one. Oh, no. Okay. All right. Robbing Napoleon. I was
robbing attention. Napoleon. And, Napoleon always had when he stood, he always had his hand in his shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And in the scene, they take it out, and it turns out Napoleon has a gold hand in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember in elementary school, people talking about, it's like seeing pictures of Napoleon in our history books and everything. And it's like, yeah, he's doing that because he's got a gold hand. And I was like, really? No, he doesn't have a gold hand. That was just a movie. Even in the 6th grade, I was doing that. That was just a movie.
And the thing about this movie is it does have a lot of factual history in it, but it plays fast and loose with a lot of things just to make it fit. And there were some things that I didn't necessarily know about because I don't look at these as a reporting on history. But when I was doing the research for this, and I think I read it somewhere before, but the do-good letters, the letters from Benjamin Franklin, and the code that's in there, he wrote those well before the Declaration of Independence, and I think it was like before he became a Freemason. Basically, the letters had nothing to do with treasure or whatnot, and it's just a convenient thing that they had historical reference to that happened at about the same time, if you will. Yeah, Benjamin Franklin was around then. We'll just make a reference to this and it'll be fine. And I think that there are people out there that meaning in these letters or whatever, and there's a hidden code. I think there are some people, a small minority, that still buy into a lot of the conspiracy theories of the day, at the Revolutionary Day, and still of today.
Well, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to find conspiracy theories of the revolutionaries, of the founding fathers, because you find when they talk about the architecture of Washington, D.C., and the things you find on money, the pyramid on the dollar bill, what does that mean?
I remember hearing that when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. And they're still talking about it, it's you get a movie like this, and it just kind of eggs on the ones that really do that, and then, but those are the, to me, those are the flat earthers, those are the moon landings never happened people. And it's like you can try and save them. You're not going to save them all. It's just it's the people who just don't know any better that's the ones that really annoy me the most, because they are capable of learning the truth, and if they don't, I mean, there's still people who still call them wind talkers now. The Navajo code talkers. They were not wind
Mm-hmm.
talkers. Okay, that's the movie title because wind talkers sounds so spiritual. No, they were
Yeah.
Navajo code talkers. Yeah.
Yes, because people, one, learn their history from movies, which we've already covered, and two, people are susceptible to plausible conspiracy theories. And like this movie, I mean, again, this whole movie is, yes, it takes some intuitive leaps and has fun with the concept, but if it weren't plausible in the way it's presented, then you'd be like, well, that totally didn't make any sense, and this wasn't even a fun movie. As much as it might be entertaining or whatnot, there was no way that you could connect X to Y to Z. They went from X to A, and this just doesn't make sense. They presented it reasonably plausibly to say, yep, this was a thing that happened. This was a thing that happened. They just, where they couldn't find something like the Declaration and the potential, and like there's something on the back, they took something that existed and incorporated it into the story, like the Silas Dogood letters. And I think the page that I read said, those were created long before this and that and the other thing. And, there was no code built into them. But I look at it as look, maybe somebody just knew, because these letters were already important, that it was something that would probably stand the test of time, and then made reference to them, finding the actual alphabet letters in the letters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
To create the code, as opposed to the code being built into the letters in the first place.
Well, yeah.
Come on.
Well, there was a thing that was going on for a little while. Somebody called it the Bible Code, and they were able to do a similar action where they found the letters in words in the Bible to say, oh, there's a secret message in there. But then somebody came around and says, I can do that with any book, and basically grabbed a bunch of random volumes and said, yeah, here's the code that's found in Isaac Asimov or Louis L'Amour and everything, So yeah, no,
it's like playing music backwards.
Yeah, it was a convenient little tool to make the story interesting.
But people think that's real, and that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. But I guess I don't know if that's like a danger we should accept, that because I mean there's going to be a lot of stories. I mean the other thing I jotted down was that Assassin's Creed franchise, the gaming franchise, they do that a lot, where they take historical events, historical characters, play a little fast and loose with some of the facts and everything, but they make the story work. And it's an interesting fantasy, and it's like it. I look at it, and I'm not saying that I'm superior or better because I know it's a fantasy, but I know it's a fantasy, and it's like it'd be interesting if history really did play out this way, which I find kind of funny because in the Assassin's Creed game that featured George Washington, he was actually an ally of the Assassins, not the Templars. But in this movie they say the Templars became right. Which one do we believe?
Well, so a couple of things. One, movies are lies, and I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, we know movies are fiction. Even documentaries, unless they're really well crafted and focusing on the neutral standpoint of look, here are the two dominant opposing views to whatever it is we're talking about. And I'm not telling you to make a decision. I'm simply presenting the information from both sides in an even format so that you can make your own decision. Or in the case of like a historical documentary, like this happened and this happened and this happened, no one knows what was said in a room with two people. They take creative liberties with that, and then they summarize like all of the things that happened in a person's life. So, for dramatic effect, they can put things in there. So this movie and others of its ilk, the Da Vinci Code comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking of that one just now. Yeah.
Takes factual nuggets and intersperses just enough of them to make you sort of believe that, oh my God, this could really have happened because that's a thing that happened and that's a thing that happened.
It's almost like movies take on the role of the god of the gaps.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because that's kind of where I was going without using that phraseology. Was we fill in the blanks, and the movie lies to us. But even the best, or actually the best lies, not even the best lies, start with the truth.
Mm-hmm. And then suddenly
I can prove that.
I have this image of the guy with the crazy hair coming out and going, aliens.
Yes. That guy's a meme. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I love watching Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, which ironically not really history, but I mean, whatever. It's fun.
So I put a question mark at the History Channel.
I think I inflected that appropriately. But watching Ancient Aliens, you're like, oh, that's so cool. You look at all the stuff, you're like, you've presented this in a way where if I, had a chance of believing it, I'm like, oh, I could totally see where you're coming from. Like, you're just reading that. You're totally missing a couple of things in between. So, Ancient Aliens sounds like a cool theory. I like it. I spent a lot of time watching the Stargate series, and in fact, Christy and I just started rewatching that recently because during our collections episode, as I mentioned, I have all 10 seasons of Stargate SG-1.
Mm-hmm.
So we started from season 1, and we're slowly moving forward. But it's fun.
It is fun. I mean, I loved listening to, and forgive me, I don't know this guy's name, but he was a big man in Egypt about Egyptian antiquities, but he also endorsed the theory of the chariots of the gods because
Eric von Daniken.
Was it him?
No, he's the author of Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Egyptian guy from this documentary. I've seen him in several documentaries. Most of the time I see him, he's actually seriously talking about Egyptian history and all the factual things that we already know about ancient Egypt in documentaries. But he also embraced the mysteries that Egypt presented. That why is the Sphinx looking into nothing? But if you reverse time and look at where the stars were 10,000 years ago, it was looking directly at the constellation Leo. These features of the pyramids, it's like they don't mean anything now, but if you move the stars back 10,000 years ago, they're pointing directly at specific constellations, which we already know.
At Orion's belt.
Yeah, we already knew that the Egyptians were avid astronomers. They did look at the stars. They did map the stars. They kept records and everything. So what does it mean? We don't know. But it is very interesting, and that's what I like, is to say that there is mystery. We don't know where to fill in the gaps yet, but it's interesting stuff. Which, by the way, kind of going along that 10,000 years, and this is just me getting on a little soapbox here because I think it's fascinating as all hell, is that there are a lot of things around the world that keep pointing to 10,000 years ago, and not just those little mysteries that I mentioned in Egypt. They found the structures underwater near Japan. And they said, well, if there's structures, they had to have been out of the water. And the last time this place was out of water was 10,000 years ago. Oh, yeah, these little structures we found in South America, well, they date back 10,000 years ago. It's like, what happened 10,000 years ago? Shouldn't we be looking at that? 'Cause supposedly,
I wonder if there was a great cataclysm.
It's like we keep seeing this, but yet we're like, man, nothing happened then. We weren't doing anything back then. No, something happened then. So let's dig a little deeper. Let's find something.
Yes. Suddenly, all of this will make sense.
What
was I going to say about 10,000 years ago?
I'm not saying aliens, but I'm saying that it's interesting.
But there's some cool squirrely stuff. Yeah. We were at the Chrysler Museum, which is a museum in downtown Norfolk, and there was an exhibit. Jesus, I can speak. There was an exhibit about the Dogon people.
Oh.
I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, who were related to, or supposed to have come from aliens. They had 3 prongs on their little hats, and it was supposed to be Orion's belt, which they were like escaped from the pyramids or something. I forget the whole tie-in. I'm really sorry, listeners. If you know more about the those doggone people, then that's usually the way I say it because it's fun. Let us know. I find it fascinating, and I heard it first on Ancient Aliens, and then went to the museum and saw the exhibit, and they referenced, not so much, Ancient Aliens, the television show, but they said, yeah, it's believed that, they worshipped Orion's belt, or they came from Orion's belt or something.
Yeah, I remember there was a chief in the office we worked in who told me about the Dogon people, and they said that they were also, not only did they everything that you mentioned, but they also kept a record of a certain star that nobody believed existed because they just made it up, until one day astronomers found it and said, well, how the hell they know about it? Because it was exactly the way they described it.
Yeah, I think it was Alpha Centauri B, wasn't it?
Something I don't know. I just remember a star, which incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, but stuff like that, lends itself to the belief in conspiracy theories, and thus makes this movie more plausible, coupled with the fact that some conspiracy theories have turned out to be true. And I say that in the vein of, not so much like in the positive, but there were the syphilis experiments or the gonorrhea experiments with African Americans by the American government in the 30s, I believe.
Was it the Tuskegee?
Yes.
Experiment. Yeah. I remember reading about that.
That was like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Like, oh, hey, guess what? Turned out to be true. So there are just enough conspiracy theories turning out true, coupled with just enough conspiracy theories that have a nugget of truth to build off of, that people are going to continue to fall for things, and even intelligent people will fall for conspiracy theories. It's not the bastion of the uninformed. It is, it's people, human beings looking for connections and trying to find, trying to manage the God of the gaps, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah, looking for answers. They want to know. The curiosity sometimes, it really gets to you, and that's why we're storming Area 51 come September 20th.
I'm not going to be there. Yeah. If they have alien crap there, I'm sure they figured out how to use some of it, and I don't think that would be successful. And 2, my birthday's like 2 days later, and I'd kind of like to be there for it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so again, these conspiracy theories, and I know we've spent a lot of time on this and gone down this rabbit hole. That's what makes this movie fun, is the playing around with some of the history and making it kind of presenting it as reasonably believable, or at least I'm willing to suspend my disbelief and follow your bouncing ball, and your bouncing ball didn't kill me along the way with something completely illogical. Well
stated. Good conclusion. I like that.
So did you have, I know you had said that this was kind of the last thing that you wanted to talk about. Was there anything else you wanted to cover?
Well, just one other thing I just wanted to mention and everything, because it was going to be a talking point, but then I realized, again, I didn't remember every line of this movie, but then it basically was at the end when, they find the treasure, and I go, wow, look at all that treasure that was stolen from foreign lands. I wonder what they're going to do with it, which basically is what it is. And it kind of made me remember like the line in Black Panther when Killmonger, it's like where do you think your people got it from? It was stolen, it's like, and that's, you can really look at a lot of pieces in museums in a lot of these first world nations, and it's like, yeah, some of this was taken from foreign lands and everything, not exactly loaned to you, And so, I saw this treasure, and it's like, oh yeah, when he was hugging the green statue, oh, this green guy with the weird, this is significant. And it's like, yeah, that's Egyptian. It should probably go back to Egypt, But then at the end of the movie, they said, yeah, it was distributed among the Smithsonian, to the Cairo Museum, to other places and everything. And I go, oh, okay, that's good. I can get on board with that, because a lot of those treasures are other people's history, and it's like, I think they ought to have it, you know?
Yeah, and when Abigail says the scrolls of Alexandria, it's like, ooh, so who gets those? Does Egypt get those back? I mean, Alexandria has been destroyed. Like, it was destroyed by nature, not by man. Like, the fact that they were saved actually,
I mean, just as a layperson who isn't much of a scholar on that, but my knee jerk reaction to say it should go back to Egypt because it was.
That's where it started. It's theirs.
Yeah, it's that was the territory it came from.
I'm inclined to agree with you. There are parts of me that like the exhibits on loan from different countries. When they're actually on loan, that's cool because I do like to see these things somewhere where I can actually get to them. But there's another part of me that let's take Iraq, for example. When ISIS had taken the territory and declared their caliphate, they were destroying tremendous amounts of history. And
not going to lie, I cried when I heard about that.
That's kind of appropriate. But the point being, if there were Iraqi or Mesopotamian artifacts in the national treasure in that thing, then should they really go back there? Because no guarantee they're going to survive, and it might be best if we just kept them somewhere until you kids are old enough to appreciate them, or there's peace in the region and we think they'll actually survive. Is that reasonable, or am I just being super cheeky about the whole thing?
That sounds reasonable, and I think that if a world community were able to put together something like that to that end, I think that would be really awesome.
Agreed.
To say that okay, this group of people, they want this land, they can have it. We're just going to take this and hold on to it, because even though this doesn't necessarily represent our people, it kind of does, because we're all on this planet, and this is all our people.
Yep, we're all spacesuits for the brain on this rock.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
But okay, so
that's all I got to say about that.
All right, Forrest. I really don't have much else to say except this probably. I mean, since I'm the only one that owns it, I'll start with where this goes on my shelf. And quite frankly, again, it's a great popcorn movie. It's a lot of fun. It's probably just right smack in the middle of general population, especially in relation to the other movies on my shelf. It's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. It's something that I will happily watch. I just don't usually pull it down off the shelf to watch it. I watch it if it's on television.
I'll tell you what, though, if they do make a third installment, as Nicolas Cage said that he wouldn't mind doing / seeing, and they come out with a box set, I'd buy it.
Fair enough.
And it would go in general population. Don't get me wrong. Again, that doesn't make it any more. Again, I don't mean to say. I know it sounds bad in my head, but no. I mean, it's not that special a movie, but like I said, it's fun. I like to have fun, and popcorn movies have value, especially to a movie aficionados like us.
Yeah, and again, I recognize that about my a lot of my movies. Like, they're just fun. They're not particularly earth shattering. They're not. And I'm gonna make a comparison. They're not Blade Runner 2049. Which ironically I was just talking to somebody with someone at work, and he'd never seen the movie before. I said, oh, well, if you like action, if you like sci-fi or whatever, and you like movies that make you think, it's like, definitely give it a watch. He's like, yeah, I'm going to watch the first one first. I said, you don't really have to. It definitely enhances the experience.
It's not going to hurt him.
Yep.
But also, in saying that too, this is probably the first podcast we're recording since Mr. Rutger Hauer passed away. So if we have a moment.
Oh yeah, good thing I brought up Blade Runner. Yeah, moment of silence for Rutger Hauer.
Like tears in rain, my friend.
Yep. Well, we did talk about Orion and Orion's belt, so Although it was Orion's
Yes, we did.
shoulder, but still.
Still,
Yeah.
still on the body.
We still got Orion references.
But thank you for the memories, Mr. Howard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sad when people like that, pass. I mean, obviously, none of us know him personally. I mean, you don't know him personally, do you?
No, not at all.
But,
And really, I don't know him much except for that role, really. I mean, maybe, an acquaintance in other roles, but that's the role I know him in, and that's the role that I'll always see him in.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest association with Rutger Hauer as well. And it's funny, it just goes back to, it's a weird rabbit hole, and then we'll close this or move on to our next movie. It's funny because that's sort of similar to the meme that I've seen or the statement that I've seen about you can tell a lot about a person by the movie they most associate Tim Curry with.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So
yeah, same here.
I'm not sure what that says, but it's a thing.
But okay.
And I'm willing to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since this is episode 54 and we are coming up on the double nickel, the next episode that we do is a random listener pick. So let's push the magic random listener pick movie generator button. Are you ready?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Silent running.
Silent running.
Oh, I don't know if I have the strength.
All right, Dan, you're going to take the lead on that one.
Yeah, that when I saw that at a young tender age, that movie, like, I cried my eyes out on that movie. But it is sci-fi classic, so I will happily talk about it now.
I will mail you Kleenex.
Extra strength, my friend.
All right. And with that, listeners, you can contact us on the Facebook page at our email, wrios2016mr@gmail.com, actually, it's just .com. You can give us a phone call at 804-699-1067 and leave us a voicemail like L. Rob Oakville edition, Robert Neese did. You can hit us up on the Twitters and share us with your friends. Also, we haven't requested this in a while, but if you're listening on iTunes, which based on our statistics for downloads is pretty likely, leave us a review on iTunes. We would totally appreciate it, and that way other people can find us too, and we can meet our goal of 5,000 downloads this year and hopefully compensate for the little break that we took. So thanks again, and we will see you in 2 weeks after Dan's movie-themed goodbye, which is...
Why can't they just say, go to this place, here's the treasure, spend it wisely?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Because no one...
Because as Indiana Jones says, X never marks the spot.
Yeah, and as they say, as is themed in this movie... not everyone was worthy of having the treasure. The founding or the Templars would be proud that that the person who found it was willing to share it.
Yes.
So, all right. And with that, we'll see you in 2 weeks with Silent Running.
Peace.